talking through it. And I went to my team on, I think it was Thursday or maybe Friday, and I pulled the group together and I said, all right, I've got something I need to talk to you about. I said, I've got bad news and I've got some good news. And I said, the bad news is that we're not going to be able to make payroll today. And I said, but I've got some good news. And it really wasn't good news. I said, I've got a plan. Like a plan. Plan's not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. I walked them through this plan where I was hoping that they would join me in trying to solve this problem, and I'd pay them through stock options.
Welcome everyone to another fabulous Fearless Founders episode where we have invited a very ugly man to our show. So he really
right.
shouldn't be on. You shouldn't
the
be on
ugliest
YouTube
of all men.
And it's horrible, but I managed to kind of weasel him out of his turtle shell. This is beautiful Brock Blake. He is a friend of mine for many years and Ike's new friend. We've been together almost 20 years in building businesses here in the local Utah tech scene. And we're excited to have Brock here. Brock, thanks, man. Appreciate you sharing your stories.
Welcome.
An hour spent with you. I'm excited.
You're a champ. Hey, without breaking a sweat, tell us who you are, how you started. The rest of the viewers want to know. Tell us the story.
Well, I mean, what people know me by is the co-founder and CEO of Lendio, but most importantly, wife the husband of Kim. Wow. And the father of 4 amazing kids, Jackson, Ellie, Jane, and Mia, and kind of neighbors with Binoy, but my family's everything for me. We founded Lendio back in 2011. It's been a journey, and we help small business owners get access to capital. So you go to one place, fill out an application, get access to many different loan options. We have a little over 100 million in revenue and a few hundred employees and whatnot. But this is a journey, man. This isn't straight up and to the right. It is a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. I talk about my career honestly through, I kind of say my 5 fetal position moments. These are moments when legitimately, not theoretically, but legitimately on the ground, fetal position, not sure how we're going to make it to the next day. And they're not all right at the beginning either. There's been recent fetal position moments as well. Where you are so overwhelmed with stress and emotion and fear that you're not quite sure hour to hour how you're going to make it through, so anxious to share some of those fetal position moments today.
Oh, I couldn't ask for more. This is fantastic. We're all smiling here for those of you listening because we all understand this fetal position. I had one client who also used the blanket of death over his head. And when he went home, Mama Bear says to the kids, do not touch Dad. He's under the blanket, because it was that bad. Blanket of death, no
question.
Fetal position. You're right on. And Ike, you and I have gone through so many of these that we're just smiling like, oh. And it's an important point too. Brock said just now, it wasn't just at the start. It still continues. You still have these moments. And that's a very important message. As you hit every plateau on the tier step way to the top to the right? There's always a challenge.
No question.
Sometimes it's a plummet. Then you come back up, hopefully higher than the previous position.
In the beginning,
okay.
In the beginning, it's like, am I gonna make it? Is this gonna make, like, I'm putting 80 hours a week is this gonna account to something? There's like all the emotional weight on your shoulder. When it's growing, it's like, oh my God, am I gonna disappoint my employees? Am I gonna disappoint my family? Like me, investors, fear of loss. Like, oh, just start making money. What's gonna happen? And so every stage has its own challenges.
No
It
question.
does.
Yeah, you think, oh man, they've made it. They've got it figured out. They probably have no stress, you know, they're just spending all their time on the weekends, you know, on next to the pool, you know, drinking their lemonade or their Mai Tai or whatever it might be, but that's just not the reality. So, and honestly, if it was like that, it probably wouldn't be that interesting. Honestly, my team, I think they've signed up at Lendio because they like hard. They like the challenge. They now sometimes we don't want to admit that, but if it was kind of just easy up and to the right, I'm not sure that would be that interesting or we would sign up for it. And so it's when there is challenge, it also creates differentiation and the satisfaction or the fulfillment of overcoming or growing through that or is also pretty amazing. And so it's not all bad. There's some really great things that come from it, but the challenges are more difficult, they're more complex. You know, I heard President Obama say something one time that was pretty interesting. This isn't a political statement in any way, but he talked about decision making when you're the president of the United States. He said, you know, all the decisions, and I think it's the same way, not to the same extent, but I think it's the same way as a CEO. The larger you get, the more difficult the decision making becomes. And the reason for that is he would say is, you know, if you think about a decision, easy decisions would be like 99 to 1, meaning 99% of the people would make this decision and 1% would make this wrong decision. And so it's pretty much an easy decision. Like it's very clear. And the more complex it gets, it starts to be like 80-20, and then it starts to be 60-40. 60% would make one decision, 40% would make the other. So it's still fairly clear. But by the time the decision gets to the CEO in a larger organization, it's likely a 50-50 decision. It is, or a 50.1 to 49.9. Meaning it's really complex. And if it was anything less than that, then probably someone else on your team would have made that decision before it got to you. And it's so complex in so many different parts that by the time it gets to you, it's like not straightforward. There's no easy decisions, you know, anymore. And the fires that you're putting out, if it was a easy fire to put out, someone else would have likely put that out. And so by the time it gets to you, it's hairy and it's complex and it's challenging, it's stressful and whatnot. And so they're fewer and far between, but they're more complex. So there's just different stages, right? Of, you know, decision making and complexities and things like that.
Beautifully said. And I'm glad you talked about him. Clinton has done the same too. He's been very insightful. But before moving any further, go back to how the original idea even started. Why did, I almost said funding universe, why did the business start off, and how did you identify the main problem that started you on this journey? Let's go there.
Yeah. So, great question. So day one, I was a student at BYU, and I had heard about this entrepreneurial competition. That it was not a business plan competition. So they weren't judging the quality of your idea or your business plan. What it was an entrepreneur competition. So we were spending kind of 8 weeks, 100 students, and narrowed us down to 20. And we were 8 weeks going through all these different learnings and competitions around a sales competition, a marketing competition, and fundraising competition and all these things. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they kind of selected 5 of us and gave us each $50,000 to go start a business. So I was one of those winners. It's kind of like the TV show The Apprentice for back in the day. You know, we don't have that anymore, but we reference it. Excuse me. So I was one of those 5. And so I had that $50,000 and I was going out and trying to figure out what I was going to do with it. Was I going to buy a business? Was I going to start a business? And I was talking to a bunch of other companies. Every business owner that I was interviewing seemed to be, I'd ask them, what's your biggest challenge? And in almost every case, their biggest challenge was I need access to capital. And they didn't have a really good solution. And at the time, I had kind of partnered with a gentleman, not the Microsoft Paul Allen, but the local Utah My Family Paul Allen. I partnered with Paul Allen and my co-founder Trent Miskin, and there was this concept of, hey, well, maybe we could create this dating concept to be able to help entrepreneurs who needed capital to efficiently connect with investors that wanted to deploy capital. And so we created what Benoist kind of described as funding universe, which was connecting them through a kind of a dating website. You post your business plan and you hope investors come. And we had kind of a speed dating event we called speed pitching, where you'd get table to table and you'd have 5 minutes to go pitch to a room full of investors. And we were building this business and trying to solve that initial problem that we had found. And what we realized through a few years kind of banging our head against the wall and making every mistake in the book was that, yes, that problem was a very large problem, big market, big challenge, but the solution to the problem that we were delivering was the wrong solution. So sometimes you can identify the problem, but the solution is wrong. And so what we said was the problem still exists. The solution to the problem was the wrong solution. And why do I say that? Only about 1% of the people that are trying to raise money from an investor are going to raise money from an investor. The overwhelming majority of small businesses in America are Main Street America. They're restaurant owners and landscapers and dry cleaners, and they're not going to really raise money from an angel or venture capitalist. And so we just were like turning away 99% of your customers. I mean, I'm no mathematician, but I'm pretty sure turning away 99% of your customers because they're not a good fit is not the right business model. So we started working on nights and weekends, kind of thinking of like, okay, but most of those customers probably could get a loan, and probably it's the best way to solve their capital problem is helping them get a $25,000 credit card, or helping them get a line of credit, or helping them get an SBA loan. So we started kind of dreaming up this concept of Lendio, and taking this demand of capital and applying it through lending instead of equity capital. And that's really when and how Lendio started.
Nice pivot.
Yeah, but that took how long? Because I want people to hear, how long did that take before
it was 5 years at Funding Universe, trying to figure out how to make that work. At least one of the fetal position moments, actually two of the fetal position moments, were during those 5 years. One of them, we ran out of money. And the second one was the transition from Funding Universe, because we built up Funding Universe to about 10 million in revenue. And it was bubblegum and duct tape trying to piece this thing together. And not a great business model. But yes, 5 years building that up before we started and we transitioned it to Lendio in 2011.
I'm jumping in. I hope you don't mind. I love first fetal position, not having money.
Yeah.
What happened? What did you do to get past that? If not, what did you do to change your mindset to deal with that?
Yeah. So the first fetal position moment. So I won that $50,000 and we started deploying that, right? And this was a stage of business that I like to describe as playing business. It was fun to build out your website and print your business cards and tell people you're an entrepreneur, and it's like a game. And but we weren't generating any revenue. We didn't have product market fit. And we just kind of thought $50,000 was a lot of money to us at the time, that thing was going to last a long time. And I remember it was, not too long after we'd started, we had eight team members, and we were it was December, and it was the payroll before Christmas. And I remember realizing, it was one evening, realizing that payroll was Friday, so probably December 15th-ish, that we weren't going to be able to make payroll. And I remember just the feeling of, how could this happen? How could we put ourselves in this situation? How just beat myself up. Stupid am I that we were doing this and we just weren't, some of the revenue goals we had, we weren't hitting or generating really any revenue. And just feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders, right? And not sure, like, this is the end. We're done. We're running out of money. And so I went to a friend of mine who was a mentor and had capital, and I went and kind of sat down with him and kind of poured out my heart and said, "Hey, please help me. Lend me some money, invest some money to help me make payroll." And he said, "Let's sit down. Let's talk through this." We sat down, and he said, I'm sorry, Brock, but I'm not going to give you any money." And I'm like, "Oh, are you kidding me? What am I going to do? How am I going to solve this?" He's like, let's talk through this. He's like, "But I'll mentor you and how we can come up with a plan." And I'm like, mentoring is not what I need right now. I appreciate the help, but he's like, "No, let's talk through it." We sat down and we started talking through it. And we did come up with a plan. He said, "The problem is, Brock, if I give you the money, you're not going to learn you're not going to learn the lesson you need to learn." And I'm like, "What's that?" He's like, you don't have any revenue. You haven't generated product market fit. Like, you don't have a real business. Giving you money is just going to delay the inevitable. Let's talk about where you're at." So we spent a bunch of hours that week talking through it. And I went to my team on, I think it was Thursday or maybe Friday, and I pulled the group together and I said, "I've got something I need to talk to you about." I said, "I've got bad news and I've got some good news." And I said, "The bad news is that we're not going to be able to make payroll today." And I said, "But I've got some good news." And it really wasn't good news. I said, "I've got a plan." Like, a plan. Plan's not going to do it. It's not going to cut it. I walked them through this plan where I was hoping that they would join me in trying to solve this problem, and I'd pay them through stock options. And I walked them through this 3-month plan of how we could get product market fit, and everyone would focus on revenue and driving customers. And I said, "Listen, I know, I get it though. I can't pay you. So I would encourage you to go home, take the weekend, talk to your spouse, consult your family, see if you can make it work. It may not even be a reality that you can, accept payment and stock option. And if you're in, you'll show up on Monday. And if you're not in, I might be the only one that shows up on Monday. But I get it, because I can't pay you. So take the weekend, stressful weekend. I'm not sure if, we're done. I'm going to have to go find a real job or what." But Monday comes around and all 8 team members showed up. And what was amazing about that experience was it taught me a couple things. The first thing it taught me was people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, and they'll sacrifice a lot if they believe in it. And I felt that people believed in what we were doing and wanted to be a part of it, and they were going to sacrifice their own kind of income for a couple months because they believed in it. The second thing I learned was truly, my mentor was so wise in that revenue kind of cures a lot of sins and a lot of mistakes. And so really figuring out, do you have a product or service that people will pay for, that is valuable, that will solve a problem? And so, that maniacal focus at the beginning of nothing else really matters except for product market fit. Um, and so we were pretty kind of, 100% focused on that for the next few months. And once we were able to get product market fit, now raising money from someone is a different experience, because now you have proof that, as they say, the dog will eat the dog food. So that was kind of fetal position moment number one, and fortunately had a great, wise mentor that helped guide me through it and get us to a point where if we hadn't, if he would have given us money, we probably wouldn't be in business today.
Fantastic. I know Ike's got some thing. I will tell you right now, as soon as you said, and on Monday morning, all of them showed up, I almost cried just listening to their story, because I've had that so many times, because you care so much for the business, you care so much for the employees, and you choke up when you see them supporting you and believing in the same vision of what's going on. When you said that, I did this, those who are watching, rubbing my nose, trying to avoid the sniffles from spring allergies. That's what it was saying. Ike, comment.
Now, obviously, it's so important to choose the right team members, and also in the early days, and also give them the right message, so that they are part of the
Solution.
the force that's gonna lift the entire company, right?
Yeah. At the same time, though, he did the right thing. He shared with them full transparency, no hiding. This is what it is. And yes, there's a plan, but still, yeah, it's a difficult swallow to go up and tell them, it's not going to work, guys. Sorry, I can't meet payroll just before Christmas. I don't know what this means. So
yeah, and it was amazing that they're willing to take a chance on the business, and what that meant, and the risk they were taking, and it was. I'm so grateful that they did take a chance. Yeah.
And how about you, Barak? How about you? Like, what got you through that weekend? Like, should I just leave, find the regular job? You said, right? Like, what was your mentality coming back to it, and then like knowing that this is going to be a struggle, at least for the next 3 months, and then you probably realized, there will be more ups and downs. So what was your thought process?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things that when I get into those fetal position moments, the first kind of line of defense, or I mean, it's just my wife. My wife is just a rock, and I remember one of the fetal position moments that I had most recently. It was during COVID, and it was an enormous problem, and our business was definitely at risk during the Paycheck Protection Program, and we were flying very close to the sun, because we were helping hundreds of thousands of small business owners get access to the Paycheck Protection Program, and one of the lenders that we were working with was not conflicted. They had a significant challenge in fulfilling the loans that we had placed with them. I mean, it wasn't us, it was the lender, but we were the one who was handling the customers. And without getting into all the details, it was hundreds of thousands of small businesses and billions of dollars at risk. So much bigger problem. And I didn't think that the lender was going to be able to come through with it. And so I was, and this was in the height of COVID, and everyone was kind of locked down and everything. And I remember being in a makeshift office in our house, on the ground, literally crying in fetal position, and because I had so much weight and a lot of public profile risk. I had been on, CNN. I was kind of the face of the Paycheck Protection Program during this time because we had helped so many small businesses, and so CNN and Fox News and every kind of news state public national news station, and so there was a lot of press around it and everything else, and I remember my wife had gone out and reached out. We are somewhat faith believe not somewhat. We are a faith-filled family, and she had reached out to all of my family and asked them to pray on my behalf. And she had asked my kids to do some genealogy work, kind of reaching out to our ancestors because we felt like there was some power in that, and I didn't know this at the time. And she came up and said, kind of, get off the floor, let's go, you got this, you can do this. And I've got the kids doing this, and I've got the entire family praying for you. You've got the strength, you've got the skills, you can do this. And she kind of just pulled me out of this funk off the ground to be able to say, I believe in you. And I think half the battle when you're in these moments is like, who have you surrounded yourself with?
Yeah.
Who are the people that are in your corner when you're at your moments of weakness, that'll come and they're going to lift you up and they're going to believe in you and they're going to inspire you and whatnot. It's usually my wife, but it's my business partners. It's my siblings. It's close friends. But in this case, it was her, and it was the exact kind of inspiration that I needed at the time to say, all right, we're going to solve this. I don't know how we're going to do it, and I only have a few hours to be able to make it happen, but somehow we need a miracle, and we're going to go do it. And a miracle happened, and we ended up getting through it. But it was all because my wife was like, I know something's going on up there. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know all the details. I know he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders. I'm going to go, make it happen. And so I'm super grateful for her, because she is strong, and she is inspired, and she is kind of my rock.
That's great. I love the story. Kudos to your wife. For our founders listening, like, I remember, like, I was so heads down on my business. Like the loneliness comes from not being able to talk to many people. Like, I spent so much time with the people at work, but you can't talk to your problems to them. The investors, I was lucky. I had some investors where they prided themselves, hey, am I the first call? So that was helpful. But I know so many of my CEO friends can't even call their board members, too dangerous. Because if they lose faith in you, it doesn't work. And I didn't build any friends outside, because I was so busy building my business, and it's like, heads down and do it. Now I'm doing this again. I am spending enough time outside building my relationships as well, not just at home, but outside, and picking the right people, from investors to the right friends. They don't have to have businesses similar to mine. They don't have to have success or failure. That doesn't really matter. Some support system is needed.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that about investors. So I think our early, part of my career, I was really scared to share bad news with my investors. How would they think about me, and would they be disappointed? Would they think, I'm not capable? All those things that, you're supposed to be able to handle it. You're the CEO, you're the founder, or whatever. And I've gone through this kind of journey where I'm now on the flip side of that, where to me, that's how I use my investors. Like, hey, I'm only going to come to you when I have problems, and I want you to be the first ones to know about it. If it's big enough that that's how you can add value. And if I'm not coming to you with problems, then that means I don't have confidence in you, or I don't trust you, or other things like that. And so I want you to be my sounding board, my problem solver. And what it does is it creates a different relationship with your investors, where they have the utmost confidence in you, because they actually don't hear as much of the good stuff. They just know, but they also know that, like, this is as bad as it gets, meaning, like, I'm gonna, like, the more difficult problems, I'm gonna call them, right, and we're gonna talk through it. And that's how I use them, and it's totally changed the relationship that I have with my board and my investors. The second thing is I don't go outside of my business partners here and my board members and whatnot. I really don't go to others about business problems.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have figured out is I need to have that. I need to create the social system and the other habits in my life such that I am personally able to handle more stress, or my from a health and fitness and mental and emotional standpoint, that I can handle that in the most capable way. And so my support system is more about that mental, emotional, physical, nutrition strength, so that I can handle the business problems versus go to them to help solve business problems, if that makes sense. So I'm very passionate about health and nutrition, you know, and like, I have kind of these rules around, you know, what I do and how I eat and how, you know, working out, and, you know, my competitive side, like, I need to be able to compete and sweat, and all that helps me from a mental and emotional strength standpoint. The relationships that I have, like, I think sometimes we think, oh, we got to just spend more and more time in the business. But when the reality is like, spending time, you know, on a weekend trip with my wife recharges the batteries from now I'm better at work to solve those problems. And going to my daughter's, you know, ballet recital last night, and my daughter's soccer game on Saturday, and, you know, the time, and being home for, you know, dinner on now, everyone does it differently. This is what works for me, but making it home time for family dinner, when, you know, during the week, gives me the emotional and physical and mental strength to be a better CEO, a better leader, to overcome and solve some of those problems. And I truly, again, I've gone through a journey on that too. Like, I felt like earlier it was just put in more hours, you know, sleep less, work more, late nights, early mornings, you know, just, and honestly, I don't think that's the solution. And and part of this is there's a couple books out there. Sorry, I'll stop. I'm on my,
No. This is why you're here.
but there's a book called High Performance Habits. I'm reading a different book right now, called The 5 something of Success. I'll see if I can find it, but it just talks about how the, you know, it's not just financial success, it's relationships, it's mental and emotional health, it's, you know, it's physical fitness and nutrition, it's, you know, it's your spirituality, and whether that's a religious spirituality or some other kind of mother nature, or whatever that means to you, meditation or other things like that. But those things, in my opinion, help me be a better CEO, a better leader, a better founder, a better executive, and more efficient in the hours that I have. The hours might be less, but the time spent is better, in my opinion. So anyway, something I'm very passionate about.
That's
So you should be. Yeah. And Ike is now, at least in the last year, started, or even before that, has started a rigorous exercise program, as he's now preparing for another ultra triathlon, right? So
Look
he
at you.
understands that. Yeah,
Let's go.
he understands that. That's great.
I do.
Look at this fit man Brock. He's got it down. Hey,
No, I don't have it down. I'm just trying.
You are trying, and you are dispensing some great advice. I got out of this conversation how whether it be the first fetal position or the more recent one, COVID time, the outcome was dependent upon other people helping, whether it be a mentor at the first time or your wife. And that's one of the things I keep telling all of my grown children. Hey, the first sign of maturity is when you start asking for help sooner.
Yes.
Right? Ask for help sooner. And for our listeners and viewers, it's this whole machismo, I got to do it all by myself. I've got to show that I'm capable, not going to show any fear, not going to expose my weaknesses. The more mature you get, and as we've now heard from you, Brock, faster. Good news, bad news fast, good news can wait. Bad news fast. Then at least you can do something about it, right? Yeah. So fantastic bit there. Along the journey also, all of us have realized, it's kind of interesting. We can't really succeed unless we balance the rest of our life out. Because if we're completely only one channel, we've neglected everything else, we die and burn out fast. And that's why we go back to the whole balance of nutrition, sleep, social recharging, right? Playtime, hobbies.
Yep.
Then when you are present, it is with precision and accuracy versus a dull blade that is wandering. I recently was talking to a gentleman who said, I just took my 50-man tech company down to 10 because our sales were so bad. And that journey of decreasing the headcount completely fried my brain. I am so muddied in my thinking now. Please help me get clarity. This just happened last week. And it was just a emotional, raw connection. Because I know what that feels like. You know how it is. We go through it. Not around it. We go through it. There's a reason for that experience. And you shared, 0 to 100 million through at least five fetal positions. It just continues. It just continues at a different angle. Ike, were you going to say something?
My heart goes out. I've been there, done that. I remember the emotional state. Ouch.
Yeah, I think that's a barometer when you say there's a maturity of like going to people. I think it's also important. Some people on this podcast might be saying, if I went to my board and I shared with them this challenge I'm going through, they would react in like this, and it may not be good. And I've been there where I had individuals that when I would share bad news, it did not go well. And I think that's a good barometer to know if you've got the right board or investors. And for me, it was a forcing function for me to, my next round of capital. We've gone through this a few times where we've curated different members of the board. And I won't get into more details than that, but and sometimes people that you have surrounding you do not respond the same way. And so either two things need to happen. You either need to replace them, or you need to sit down with them and say, hey, I really want to come to you. I think it will be best for the business and best for our relationship. I want to come to you when we have problems. I want you to be able to help me solve these problems, because no business is up and to the right. In fact, our ability to build a great business depends on how capable we are of solving difficult problems. I would like you to be a part of that. But when I come to you and you respond like A, B, and C, it creates the opposite intention. Like, I don't want to come to you with this problem. So either you need to have that conversation with your board member or investor, or you probably need to find an opportunity to kind of change that so that you have that relationship where you can go to them and you can surround yourself with those people earlier on.
Beautiful.
I think that's great advice. 100%. I think I remember I had to part ways with one of my board members. It was tough, but we have to have the courage to do it. The Bino, you taught me this, right? Board is an interesting dynamic. They can fire you, but they are supposed to work for you. So you have to have the courage to go talk to them. Like, I think testing your board members like that, Brock, it's an awesome idea.
In this journey, Brock, you've already displayed an unusual level of EQ. When you encountered those individuals that had to transition out at the board level, could be an executive as well. How did you prepare yourself such that the conversation went as best as it could? How did you fortify your own inner confidence to be able to come up and have that conversation? I know lots, including myself, we want to know how you did that.
Oh, well, I do not want to portray that I handled it great or that I've got all the answers figured out. So that's definitely not the case. But it's like you said with your friend who, went from 50 to 10. Sometimes, there's just you just can't go around it. You can't go over it. You just got to go through it, right? You just got to hit it straight on. And sometimes it's like, oh man, I keep pushing this off, although I know deep down this is the right decision. It's what I need to do. And you kind of build up your courage to address it. But and it's hard, but I think just that advice that you said, you got to go through it. And so addressing it straight on, I like to, when it's hard to do, I like to just schedule it, meaning, hey, can we talk tomorrow afternoon or whatever? And so it's kind of forcing function. Do it through text or through email or whatever, but get something on the calendar that forces that conversation to happen. So you just have to go through it, right?
Well done on that, creating the intentional meeting to discuss. I meet with a lot of CEOs. We have a lot of they have a lot of difficult conversations that happen up or down. But the biggest conversation that happens, the most important conversation, is between the ears, because they're caught up in a little storytelling of woe is me, or no, that's not going to work out, or if I'm going to look like an idiot, and all of that. And I found that is more detrimental to moving the company forward than the actual conversation that takes place. And then they go, oh, that didn't go so bad after all. But it's the limiter and the braking that happens here that continues to delay, to kick the can. You kick the can down the road unnecessarily because you're caught up in your own story. The quicker we get.
I mean, that's a weakness of mine, honestly. I believe in people, maybe sometimes to a fault, where I'm like, oh, it's all right. They can turn it around. They can change. They can, and so even like, I know in my heart of hearts, it's probably the right decision to move on, to make a change. But I'm like, but maybe we can help coach them into this, or help them. We can, and listen, I've had great situations where that's worked out, but almost every single time I wait longer than I should have to have made the change, even though I knew deep down. And then afterward, because then your fear, like, okay, this is going to happen. And then, and then all these other bad things are going to happen. And you start, like you said, you're building that story up in your head. Right. And in almost every single case, in fact, I can't think of another case where it didn't go this way. Like, it happened, it wasn't as bad. I should have done it 3 months earlier, 6 months earlier, and I'm like, oh, okay, next time I'm not going to hold on so long, So that is something that I know is hard. I mean, it is a challenge for me for sure. Just because you want to believe it's gonna work out, and you have loyalty to people, and it's hard. You have a relationship, and them and their spouse and their family and all that. So the whole thing's hard. It's hard.
I can tell that you are a very good leader. You care very much, Brock. It's coming through loud and clear. Kudos. That's part of your gift that you've got, to be able to connect. And Ike knows this. Ike has the same, cares. And that's how you've been able to have a successful business. With that said, with a few minutes we've got left, if you wouldn't mind, Brock, if you could synthesize the 3 remaining fetal positions in terms of, one was based around this, one was based around this, just even a minute, Could you just itemize those so that we can all say, oh, okay, that happened. Three fetal positions, 1 minute.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't do it in 1 minute, but I will do my best. One was a customer experience. In every case, the fetal position moments are, I'm not sure if we're going to make it to the following day. And so you are questioning whether like everything you've built and you've is like hanging by a thread in this moment, and it's dependent on something happening. And so half the battle, in my opinion, as an entrepreneur, as a startup, is the endurance, the persistence to fight to live another day, just one more day. And when you feel like all is lost, and nothing's going to go right or whatever, it's like I'm not trying to get to next month. I'm trying to get to tomorrow. And if I get to tomorrow, then I'll try to get to the next day. So most of my fetal position moments are those situations where you don't see a path. You don't, whether it's a something with customers, whether it's running out of money, whether it's an employee, you have to go and do layoffs or reductions, and what comes with that, and the pain and the stress. But it's always those moments of like, I just don't think I don't see how we're going to do this. And figuring out how to get to the next day, just one day.
Well put. I'm going to throw out a few of them. You said it too. I can probably concur. Money, running out of money multiple times, not just once.
Yep.
Complexities of people issues that can cause massive impact to culture, whether it be from a board level or from a executive level. Lawsuits and extraneous elements that are completely out of your control, and yet you have to deal with them, and the complexities that come with it. For the internal battle that we all have, that we can't do it, we cannot do it, and the story making, but you have to go through it, is a challenge. I see that consistently through all of them. When you realize, I just need to do one more thing today, just last till tomorrow. And my wife and I have this strange habit. Whenever we get into arguments, which are becoming less, I'm happy to say, we don't resolve it before going to bed. We actually sleep on it, and the next day is like, what was all that about? Right? What was all that huge emotional trauma about? You okay? Yeah. All right, let's go get some breakfast.
Right.
It's just that space that you can have to kind of soothe those stories and emotions, allows you to see things with clarity, and then come with hopefully outside help and extra ideas to tackle that.
No question.
Just blurted all of that out.
Well said.
We run out of time. Man, Brock, it's good.
It's okay. Brock, you're just going to have to come back in a few months.
I would love to. I've loved the conversation. It's been great.
Thank you so much. This has been awesome. I think as you know, a lot of first-time founders struggle. It's eye-opening and gives hope, I think, to everybody, that these struggles are gonna build the character and the company, and as long as they take care of themselves, and utilize their support systems that they build, they will solve the problems one by one. That's what we signed up for as entrepreneurs. Every other week, we're gonna have a crisis that we're gonna solve. This is the job title.
That's the job, man, and it is. I've been there in those positions, and just fighting to live through it. One more day, and you know what? And on the other side of it, it is amazing the fulfillment that comes through building a business and solving a problem and creating a culture of team members that building something and seeing the fruits of that. There's just it's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And the key is not to get too high and not to get too low, and just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Beautiful, Brock. Thank you so much. Sincerely.
Yeah.
You
Thanks
owe
for
me
having me.
plugs.
I enjoyed it.
Not at
A
all.
lot of
Thank
fun.
you. Everybody else, tune in next time. And this was our fabulous and very ugly Brock Link. Thank you again. Take care.